From the very first week of filming, the atmosphere on set had already shifted. What was supposed to be a simple romantic drama suddenly felt unpredictable, almost electric, because every time Dylan and Shen Yue stepped in front of the camera, something happened that no one expected. Their scenes didn't feel rehearsed, controlled, or structured. Instead, they felt raw, unfiltered, and far too natural, so natural that even the staff began whispering that this wasn't acting anymore. It was something else entirely. On the third shooting day, the director called for a retake of a simple moment. Dylan's character was supposed to lightly touch Shen Yu's hand to get her attention. Just a brief, casual gesture. But when the camera rolled, Dylan didn't just touch her hand. His fingers lingered a little too long. His eyes stayed on her face long after the scripted line ended, and Shen Yu's reaction wasn't the one written in the script. She didn't pull back. She didn't break character. She didn't act shy. Instead, she stared back with that quiet softness only she could portray, something real, something that felt more like a genuine moment between two people who forgot they were being filmed. The director said nothing at first. He let the scene finish, even though everyone felt the air tighten around them. When he finally whispered cut, the staff exchanged looks. This wasn't in the script. And yet, it was perfect. From that moment onward, the unspoken truth on set was that Dylan and Shen Yue kept slipping out of character, not because they made mistakes, but because they were too immersed in each other. No matter what scene they were filming, the emotional charge went beyond acting. They added touches that weren't written, eye contact that lingered too long, and silences that felt heavier than words. It was as if the script was only a guideline, and their hearts were writing something else entirely. One day, while shooting a confrontation scene, the script called for frustration and emotional distance. But when the cameras began rolling, the tension they produced wasn't cold. It was warm, conflicted, intimate. Dylan stepped closer than the director instructed. Shen Yue didn't move away. Their breathing synced. Their voices softened. And the director didn't dare interrupt because what they were delivering was too powerful to stop. A staff member later whispered that the scene had to be cut in half because it looked less like a scripted argument and more like a couple fighting in real life, unable to hide how much they cared for each other despite the tension. It was so authentic that keeping the entire recording would have exposed a connection the production wasn't ready to reveal. As filming continued, the problem, or blessing, depending on who you asked, grew. Scene after scene, Dylan and Shen Yue kept drifting into their own world. The production team began noticing patterns. Dylan stood closer to her than necessary. Shen Yue remembered small details he mentioned off-camera and reflected them in her expressions. They improvised lines that were never approved but somehow made the scene stronger. The sound crew even joked that they had to boost the background audio because the microphones kept picking up an unusual softness in their voices whenever they spoke to each other. It didn't sound like acting. It sounded like two people talking privately, even when dozens of staff members were present. What really set the rumors ablaze was a tender moment during a late-night shoot. The script required a quiet, emotional exchange, but Dylan and Shen Yue took it somewhere deeper. When Dylan lifted her chin gently, it wasn't in the script. When Shen Yu's voice cracked with genuine emotion, it wasn't planned. And when Dylan whispered something off-script that made her eyes water, everyone watching from the monitors froze. The director didn't yell cut. He let the scene unfold naturally, capturing something raw and unrepeatable. After the scene ended, the silence behind the monitor lasted so long that even the assistant director whispered that wasn't acting. Word spread fast. Assistants, stylists, camera operators, all of them noticed the same thing. No matter how professional they tried to remain, something was happening between Dylan and Shen Yue, something powerful enough to rewrite the emotional tone of the entire show. The producers grew concerned, not because the chemistry was bad, but because it was too good. Too real. Too consuming. Their unexpected emotional depth was changing the trajectory of the drama. Scenes meant to be light suddenly felt intimate. Minor romantic moments turned into full-heart displays. The original romantic pacing no longer matched what the leads were giving naturally. Rumors began circulating that the writing team had secretly been asked to adjust the storyline to match the energy Dylan and Shen Yue brought. Their chemistry wasn't just overpowering the script, it was altering it. Crew members even confessed that they loved watching the two work because it felt like witnessing something happening in real time, something genuine blooming right in front of them. But the producers worried. They wanted control. They wanted predictability. And Dylan and Shen Yue were delivering the exact opposite. Still, no matter how much anyone tried to rein it in, the truth was simple. Every time Dylan looked at Shen Yue, something shifted. And every time Shen Yue responded, something deepened. Their scenes were magnetic. Their presence together was undeniable. And their connection, whatever it was, had crossed the line from acting to something that felt dangerously close to reality. Everyone on set began asking the same question. Were Dylan and Shen Yue still acting, or did the script become secondary to a connection they could no longer hide? The production tried masking it. They tried controlling it. They tried reshaping scenes. But real chemistry can't be rewritten. And in the case of Dylan and Shen Yue, the line between script and real emotion was fading fast, in front of the camera and behind it. The tension between Dylan and Shen Yue didn't calm down as filming progressed. If anything, it grew more noticeable. The more the cameras rolled, the more everyone realized that something was happening that couldn't be rehearsed or pretended. Their scenes, even the simplest ones, carried a depth that made the crew stop whatever they were doing just to watch. One afternoon, they were filming a scene in a quiet cafe, a moment meant to feel distant and awkward. Their characters were supposed to be at odds, avoiding each other and barely making eye contact. But when the director called action, the entire tone changed immediately. Dylan looked at Shen Yue the moment she walked in, and that look alone completely shattered the scripted dynamic. He wasn't supposed to soften. He wasn't supposed to smile. But he did. A small smile, the kind that doesn't belong in a drama script, the kind that only happens when you're seeing someone you genuinely care about. Shen Yue froze for a split second, not because it was written that way, but because she reacted instinctively. Her expression softened, her voice warmed, and suddenly the awkward distance scene became a quiet reunion. It wasn't what the script wanted, but it was what their emotions delivered. When the director called cut, no one spoke for a moment. The scene had depth, tenderness, a quiet intimacy that wasn't planned. And it felt too authentic to erase. After reviewing the footage, the director sighed and muttered, "They're too connected. It's impossible to control." And so, for the third time that week, the scriptwriters were told to revise scenes, not to force the actors into character, but to follow the emotional tone Dylan and Shen Yue naturally created. This became the new normal. Script changes, last-minute rewrites, sudden adjustments. Not because the drama wasn't working, but because Dylan and Shen Yue's chemistry was writing a better story than anyone imagined. The production no longer questioned whether they were acting. The only real question was whether the two leads even realized how obvious their connection had become. But the most telling moment happened late at night during an emotionally heavy scene. They were filming in a quiet street, with soft lights and a cold breeze that made everything feel more intimate. The script required Dylan to gently wipe a tear from Shen Yue's cheek. Simple, tender, but scripted. When the moment arrived, Dylan didn't just follow the stage direction. He stepped closer than the camera required. His expression softened in a way that didn't match the character. This was Dylan, not the role. When he reached out to touch her cheek, his hand shook slightly, and instead of wiping the tear, he cupped her face gently, fully. The touch lingered. Too long. Far too long. Shen Yue didn't pull away. She leaned into his hand, eyes glistening with something deeper than character emotion. When she whispered her line, her voice cracked, not dramatically, but naturally, like someone standing in front of a person they had been trying to hide feelings for. The set went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The director didn't yell cut. He didn't dare interrupt something so real, something no scriptwriter could create. It was a moment that revealed everything, every unspoken feeling, every glance the staff had noticed, every tiny shift in body language that hinted this was no longer just a professional partnership. When the scene finally ended, Dylan stayed close. His hand dropped slowly from her face, but he didn't step back. Shen Yue didn't either. They just stood there, staring at each other, forgetting the cameras were still rolling. A stylist watching from the corner whispered to another staff member, "Tell me that was acting." And the other replied quietly, "No one can act like that. Not with that much truth behind it." The rumors grew louder after that night. Assistants joked that Dylan and Shen Yue had become impossible to direct because they were living their own romance. The camera team admitted they had to adjust the focus constantly because the two leads kept moving closer to each other, even in scenes that didn't require it. And the sound team claimed they caught whispered exchanges between takes, soft, private words that weren't part of any script but carried too much affection to ignore. People on set started noticing smaller things too. Dylan began showing up earlier, always around the time Shen Yue arrived, almost as if he timed it. Shen Yue started bringing snacks she said were extras, but somehow always handed the first one to Dylan. They laughed more between takes. They stood closer than co-stars usually did. They didn't flinch at each other's touch anymore, not even during rehearsals. Then came the moment that truly confirmed everyone's suspicions. During a break, the cameras weren't rolling. The set lights were dimmed. Most of the crew was busy adjusting equipment or setting up the next scene. Dylan and Shen Yue were sitting close, too close, reviewing a scene on a small monitor. A staff member walking past caught a glimpse of them. Dylan leaned in to whisper something. Shen Yue laughed quietly and rested her head against his shoulder for a moment. A soft, natural moment that wasn't for the cameras. The staff member quickly walked away, realizing what they saw wasn't meant for anyone else. When word spread across the team, it became clear that the line between acting and reality had completely disappeared. Dylan and Shen Yue were no longer just delivering chemistry on screen, they were carrying it with them everywhere they went. It lingered in their smiles, their gestures, their silences. Everyone knew something had shifted. Something deep. Something real. And although the production tried to hide it, tried to adjust scripts, tried to maintain professionalism, it didn't matter anymore. The truth was already visible in every scene they filmed and every moment they shared. Their chemistry wasn't just overpowering the script, it was rewriting it. And whether they admitted it or not, everyone around them knew one thing for certain: Dylan and Shen Yue were no longer pretending.